everybody, if they've never had an accident or an injury and they're in the industry and that's how they work, they'll always feel like, well, that will never happen to me. That is the mindset that everybody has, because if something bad's never happened to you and you work like that, then what is it going to take for you to change? You know, do you ever think about your family at home? Do you have a wife? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have children? I've been in an accident, I'm in the hospital, bringing the kids, I've severely slashed my arm, might never be able to use it again. I don't know how long I'm going to be off work for. I don't know how we're going to pay the rent. If you have a nasty injury and it's life-changing, the person that was telling you to do it differently, to do it unsafely, they're not affected, are they? Like, if you can't work anymore, or if you decide to change careers because you've injured yourself so badly, then off you go into the sunset. The person you are working for, they just hire a new person. They're not affected. You're the one that's affected. Your family is the one that's affected. Mitigate as much as you can. Mitigate those risks.
Hello
and welcome to climbingarborist.com. My name is Dan Holliday. Welcome to 2025. I wanted to just go through my thoughts of the year to come, 2025, what I've learned over the past few years, like more recent times, where I've got to in my mindset about tree climbing and being an arborist as a job, running a tree service company, you know, managing staff and having those responsibilities, and obviously doing this, making content for climbingarborist.com, and kind of like how, you know, my mindset about everything really, because so yeah, that's what I'm going to cover in this video, and hopefully, you know, if you're watching this, then you're watching this because you like my content, you like to learn things, maybe you're new to the industry, you're trying to get as much information as you can, maybe you've kind of followed the journey of climbingarborist.com for, you know, a number of years, maybe you're a subscriber, maybe, yeah, like, for whatever reason that you're watching this video right now, number one, I appreciate it. Number two, I hear from a lot of you, either that be in the comments on YouTube, comments on like Instagram, maybe I've met you at a conference, an expo, tree climbing competition, maybe I've just, yeah, in any walk of the arborist industry life, maybe I've met you, and you've, because so many people, you know, like, give me their first-hand experience of like when they came across my site, when they've used it, how they found it helpful, that kind of thing. So so yeah, I know, you know, people out there, how much it has had an impact on various different people's journey through being an arborist, whether they used it when they first got into the industry and they found some really basic stuff that was useful, but I want to bring it all the way back to talking about what I've learned over the last few years, and like where I'm at now in how I think about the industry, and how I personally approach my work, how I approach my business, running my tree service business, how I look at creating content, and what is the message that I'm trying to get across really. And I suppose the message would be it's how I feel about the industry and about what I feel is important. So yeah, let's get to that. What do I feel is important? What have I learned over my career, but also especially over the last few years? Have I had a mindset shift, or what things have become really important to me? And the two real standout things that over recent years that I just heavily focus on, try and pass on to my employees or the contractors that work with me, and get across like that is the goal. So number one is efficiency, and that like efficiency across the board is like me personally working as efficiently as I can as a part of the team. Two is the team working as efficiently as possible as a team to you know, in working towards the common goal, which is completing the job at hand, completing it as efficiently as possible, which means obviously as quick as possible, but saving the most amount of energy, or being the most energy efficient. And that comes from the thought process of not like burning yourself out. You know, if you're going like balls to the wall every day and you're not really working efficiently, but you're just like trying to be as fast as you can, that's going to catch up with you. You might cause yourself an injury because you're just going too hard every single day. You might just get run down. You might get ill more often. You might you might pull muscles, strain muscles, cause yourself injuries. You might just get frustrated. You might get depressed. You might get in a bit of a negative headspace about the work because you just feel like, you know, it's hard graft every day. And, you know, don't get me wrong, when I got into the industry, it is hard graft. It's not it's not a job, it's not a trade that like you can just like cruise along. If you actually have a passion for the job and you want this job to be a career and you enjoy doing it, you are going to have those days where it's hard graft. You're going to have that first maybe like 4 or 5 years of joining the industry and trying to learn the tasks and the skills and the responsibilities, trying to learn how to climb and how to learn to become somewhat proficient and efficient, because it like doesn't happen overnight. And as much as people want to think that in this day and age they can like learn, they can learn something at home on the computer, on YouTube, just by watching some videos, you can learn the principles and the ideas of how to do things. But as a tree climber, man, just experience and doing it and repetition is how you actually become a proficient tree climber, really. But yeah, as a tree climber, I've been in the industry probably 21 years, 22 years now, and so that's a lot of time in working with a lot of different people, in working with a lot of different types of equipment, progressing my equipment over the years, like as the equipment's evolving, trying to evolve myself as a climber, trying to use what I feel is the most beneficial equipment, maybe it saves the most energy, or that can help me be fast while saving energy. So yeah, I've got a lot of experience just purely through the time I've been in the industry. And yeah, the last I'd say that like the last 5-6 years, like I've really focused on efficiency, and that has been like the key word that's been at the forefront of my mind all the time when I speak to the guys that I work with. It's like we talk about efficiency all the time, like and it's a conversation how we'd be more efficient, and it's just a reminder of do these little things and that will be more efficient for this particular task. And it's just constantly being efficient. Also, it's been efficient like running my business, so that like how I because I'm a tree climber, just that is what I am through and through. I wouldn't say, I don't think of myself as like a businessman, but I still have to wear that hat as a business. Even though I run a small business, you still have to do those admin tasks. And some of you might know that I'm an ambassador for a CRM called Jobber, and that is basically another way that I am as efficient as possible in not having to spend so much time doing those little admin tasks. And it was like that kind of thing, like a CRM like Jobber wasn't even on my radar before before they came to me and like said, do you want to try this CRM? And I was just doing things the old school way. But now I see the benefit in like the time saving that you get from using like Jobber, and like using, and like how everything's like already pre-written for me, and like my quotes, and I can just do it all on my phone when I'm out and about, and like, so running my business, just being efficient at the business, which I'm not, yeah, like I say, I'm not very good at. But I try and like keep all that stuff to a minimum so that I can focus on being on the tools with the guys, trying to constantly pass on my knowledge to the people that I work with, because there's no point in like me gaining experience and knowledge and like, you know, trial and error and all that kind of stuff if I'm not going to pass that on. So I constantly have to remind myself, like at any given opportunity, and usually it is an efficiency opportunity. If I can see somebody doing something that I'm like, I would probably do it slightly differently just because I feel like it's a more efficient way. So I'm constantly trying to pass on those like efficiencies to people, because like we need to keep evolving, and so we need to keep passing on knowledge that we've learned. And I feel like the more knowledge I can pass on to a less experienced person, the quicker that they will evolve into a better climber. The other thing that's the most important to me, as well as efficiency, is just safety. And it's strange because I am so safety oriented all of the time, but I actually, and the videos and the techniques that I try and create content on for Climbing Arborist, I feel like it's all based around like safety and what is the safe way to do certain things. But I don't actually feel like I've spoken about it for a long time in how what it means to me. Safety has been a huge topic for me for a long time. I suppose with the creation of Climbing Arborist, I then started to create I wanted to create content to pass on information that I'd learned, because I felt like when I was coming up I didn't really have too many people to learn from, and so it was like a really slow process of learning. And I felt like all the things that I've learned, if I could create some good information that was safe, that people could learn from all parts of the world, which is why I created the website in the first place. But as I started creating, I started to then like research and look into like the safety, safe work practices, and I used to really focus and improve my own safety, because at the beginning of my career it was like I thought I had good training, but it was like the Wild West. There were so many things that I did that weren't safe. So as I like in the last few years, safety is just so key. And the way that I like to explain it, so if you're watching this now and you know, like the age old like arguments of, you know, do you one-hand a chainsaw, do you use two hands on a chainsaw, did you lanyard in as well as having your main line when you're using a chainsaw, so you've got 2 points of attachment, so that if your saw kicks back or slips or whatever, you have 2 points of attachment as a backup. And those are the two key points, but there's so many more safety issues apart from those, but those are like the two most heavily contested and talked about, and like, oh, you can't be productive if you're constantly using two hands and if you're constantly roped in twice and all this kind of stuff. And you could argue those things, and I can argue those things until I'm blue in the face, and people will say you can't do it, and I'll obviously say you can, because that's how I work. That's how I've been running my own business now for when did I start? 2017. And that's how I've worked. So I get jobs, I win jobs, I win so my pricing isn't outrageously high because I'm taking longer and that kind of thing. It's because that's how I've worked for such a long amount of time that I figure out the most efficient way of doing things in like safely, but working as a team. I think of like the job as a one big goal rather than just like my portion. So I feel like how I can be most efficient and how I can make the ground staff work at an efficient rate, and me dropping branches, and maybe I'm not like hammering stuff down, because then they're going to get buried. So maybe I'm making the most use of my time, because if I said to you, and say if you one-handed chainsaw all of the time, and I say to you, right, you've got to only use two hands from now on, 100% you're going to be slower, because you're not used to planning to work like that, and you're not used to planning to use your lanyard for every single cut you make as well as your main line. And so it takes it's a process to change your ways and change and figure out how to be efficient. Climbers that I've met that can be super fast and efficient but have all those safety measures in place and can work like that, they're so much better as a climber, because they plan ahead, so many steps ahead. They plan how to use their lanyard in one location, and where they can make multiple cuts from, because that's more efficient than taking your lanyard on and off each time. Everybody, if they've never had an accident or an injury and they're in the industry and that's how they work, they'll always feel like, well, that will never happen to me. That is the mindset that everybody has, because if something bad's never happened to you and you work like that, then what is it going to take for you to change? You're probably not going to change because you just watched this video. I suppose how I like to get people thinking is like, do you ever think about your family at home? Do you have a wife? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have children? What would happen if, God forbid, the unpredictable happened and you got a nasty kickback because there was a nail in the tree that you weren't prepared for, your chain got pinched and it kicked back, your arm was somewhere in the firing line and you thought you had control, and then your saw hit your arm, and just any one of the gazillion things. Because if you're in tree work, that there's so many things that can go wrong, and that you can try and mitigate as much as possible, and there are still other things that that nearly hit me, but we've all got away with so many things by a whisker. We've thought, oh, that was close, but then because it was just close, that doesn't stick with you for too long, because it never actually caused major injury, but the amount of times something might have nearly poked you in the eye, or you nearly got smashed by a branch that the chipper whipped around, and there's so many opportunities for us to be injured. So not to take those extra safety precautions when you're using tools like chainsaws. So what I like to say is, do you ever think about your children at home? If you had to make that call one day and say, I've been in an accident, I'm in the hospital, bring the kids to see me, I'm gonna, I've severely slashed my arm, might never be able to use it again. I don't know how long I'm going to be off work for. I don't know how we're going to pay the rent. I don't know if I'll ever be able to wipe my ass again. Like, I don't know. There's just all these crazy things. Like, but we never think about that. But if you sit down and you will never have this conversation with your partner, probably, because if they're not in the industry, then they really don't know what you do day to day. They might have seen pictures, videos, that kind of thing, but they're not there day to day. So you'll probably never have a conversation, and your partner maybe doesn't think that you work in a dangerous way, because you probably don't ever tell it. You're probably not saying, oh yeah, I wield the chainsaw one-handed, and that's not how you're supposed to do it, but that's how I do it. Nobody ever says that to their partner. Like, everybody feels like they're in control, they're safe. And I suppose this thought process, or this mindset, came to me more when I started having people work for me, when contractors came in, or when I had employees, and now I'm responsible for them. And now if something happens, I might have to be the one to call up their wife, their partner, their kids, and say, look, your husband is lost an eye, or he's fallen out of a tree because he's severed his lanyard, severed his rope, he's broken his spine or his femur, or like any one of a million things that can happen. I never ever 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 want that to be a phone call that I have to make. And because of the way that I've worked for so long in a safe manner, every person that comes to work for me, I'll project that from day one and say, this is how we work at this company. If you don't work like this already, then it's going to be tough. It's going to be you're going to feel like it's hard work. It's a slow process, because you're going to have to change your habits. Luckily, I trained a guy, Tom, from the very beginning, so he never really knew any different. I had Connor work for me, who was an amazing Irish guy that, some miracle, he'd always worked in a safe manner as well. So I didn't really have to, I had to train Tom from scratch, but that was easy because you're not having to change bad habits. You just instill in good habits from the get-go. And I feel like people get trained well from the get-go. I suppose they won't know any different. Whereas if you have to change your habits, that's when it really becomes obvious. Oh my God, I'm so much slower. Because I realise I don't plan multiple steps ahead, because I'm not having to plan where my lanyard goes, and not having to plan as much the process that I'm going to take off all these different limbs and stuff. So yeah, anybody that comes through the door with my company, we work, like from day one, I'll say, this is how we work. And if it takes you longer, if you feel slow, then suck it up. That's what it is. It's my company. I'm in charge, and so if jobs run over because you're much slower, because you're having to change the ways, then I am the one that is going to have to suck that up, because I want you to change, but I feel like you're good enough and you bring enough to the table to want to keep you on and employ you for the skills that you have, but you just have to like change some habits that you have. So yeah, so moving forward into 2025, if you're new to the industry, then please start out and understand there are safe work practices there for a reason. And it's hard. Like, I remember when I first started, if you go to a company and you're like green, you're fresh, and somebody tells you, oh no, that's not how we do it here, you have to use one hand because you're now out at work, you're not in college anymore, you're not in training anymore, so now you forget all that training, and you just, like, that's not how, like, some people will tell you that's how it's supposed to be, but it's going to take a bit of courage and a bit of self-preservation for you to stand up and say, no, this is how I think I should do it to be safe. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have a nasty injury and it's life-changing, the person that was telling you to do it differently, to do it unsafely, they're not affected, are they? Like, if you can't work anymore, or if you decide to change careers because you've like injured yourself so badly, then off you go into the sunset. The person you are working for, they just hire a new person. They're not affected. You're the one that's affected. Your family is the one that's affected. And so it's all right for the boss to be like, do it like this, but what? So at the end of the day, and you've been like worked to the bone, you've been told to speed up, you've been told you got to use one hand. If you think back to yesterday, the day before that, like, do those days even matter anymore? Or you've just done a job, you've completed a job for somebody you work for, you've been paid, they've been paid, and it's on to the next, and it'll be that for the rest of your life, and it's up to you to decide, do I want to make sure I get home safely to my family every single day? And the way that you can do that is to mitigate as much as you can, mitigate those risks, and the risks come in the form of chainsaw cuts, cutting yourself out of a tree, dropping limbs, branches on yourself, like being trapped by them, using the rigging lines, dropping them on your colleagues. There's so many things that we have to think about from a safety point of view, so to make sure you understand as much as you think people care for you, care about you, like your boss. If your boss is not promoting safety, then he or she, they don't really care. They're not going to care once you've injured yourself and you're off work. They'll just get somebody else in. So self-preservation, you have to look after, number one, you have to look after your own family. You have to make sure that you can go back to work every single day. And that is why, I suppose that's why I'm making this video. That is why I still make content. That is why I try and make the content as safety oriented as possible. It is possible to be an arborist and work safely all day, every day. I feel like I feel like I can probably still work even safer. Sometimes, I don't know, like, there's always improvements to be made. No matter what you do, there's improvements to be made, and that's why I like to think, looking ahead to 2025, what improvements am I going to make? How can I make my processes safer, my team safer, the equipment that we use more efficient and safer, the truck setup, how can that be safer? How can we try and avoid injuries? So yeah, like, if you've watched this whole video, then I appreciate it, and hopefully you can take a lot away from that, because if you're still watching, it means that you care, and that you care about your own future, your own career. Yeah, so I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you can share this with your team, with your colleagues. I'd love it if you commented below, and also try and create a safer culture at your place of work. If you're a foreman, if you're a crew leader, if you're a manager, if you're a tree business owner, take 2025 and be like, this year is going to be our safest year. We're going to implement more safe practices. We're going to talk, we're going to have sit down discussions maybe once a week, and all talk about close calls and what little ideas we feel like we could make things safer. How can we make the truck and chipper setup safer? How can we make our job site setup safer? How can we make our climbing individual tasks safer? Yeah, so add a comment below about what you feel that you can do this year to improve, what your team can do, if you're going to take it on yourself to be that person that's going to make change in your company. Yeah, anyway, I appreciate you watching. Like I say, it's amazing if you've got to the end of this video, so thank you so much. 2025, let's make it a safe one, let's make it a good one, let's make it profitable. And hopefully I'll be able to make way more content again this year. So thank you, be safe out there, bye.